interrupt this program to bring you Courage, the Cowardly Dog Month.
Whole month of Courage, the Cowardly Dog. First appearing in 1996, it was picked up by Cartoon Network, who work in the middle of Burbank, and directed by cartoonist John Dilworth. Though many years have passed since the original air date, it's now time for Zack to celebrate this great show.
Well, old sport, what do you think? Neat.
Hey guys, Zack here, and welcome back to Courage Month. So, we're actually in Season 3, which means we're going to be starting off with the first episode of Season 3, Muriel meets her match, and Courage versus Mecha-Courage. So, let's get into both of those. Okay, and so this first episode, Muriel meets her match, is actually very interesting, and that a criminal actually shows up and steals Muriel's identity in order to frame her for a crime. So it is very interesting. So the episode opens up with us meeting Maria Ladrones, and to a lesser extent her husband Mano Ladrones, who we don't actually see, or at least I'll get into that. But there's a good reason for that. There's a good reason we don't see much of him. So the episode, but in any case, the episode starts off with the two of them actually escaping the police, and they actually wind up going past the back farmhouse and actually wind up pulling off the road and around the back of it. And they're actually pointing out that they're not going to go back to prison, and that they actually need to afford to get Mano his operation. So at which point they pull around the back and realize that they actually need a plan to actually evade the cops for the time being. At which point they spy Muriel and Eustace and realize they can actually use this to their advantage. And then Maria asks Mano if he still has his hedge clippers on him. At which point, as Muriel is actually kind of in the process of making tea, Maria actually knocks on the back door and introduces herself as Muriel's new neighbor. And points out that and then proceeds to explain that they're having a bit of engine trouble, and that their mobile home is actually broken down, and that they actually need a place to stay until they can actually get the engine fixed. And Muriel decides to let him in, but also points out that about her husband. But she merely remarks that her husband is shy, and that he won't actually be able to be joining them. So Muriel merely takes sympathy on him and lets Maria into the house. But Courage, who actually is still watching the trailer, actually notes that something seems off about Mano, and he's not wrong, because then it's revealed that the main body of Mano falls away and is actually a standee, which concerns Courage a little bit, but he's not entirely sure what it means as of yet. So he just kind of follows Muriel into the main living room, where she and Maria are actually exchanging pleasantries, and also in the process, Eustace is now trying to watch TV, but then the TV actually winds up going out. So he sends Courage out to investigate, and Courage quickly discovers that Mano has since snipped their antenna with his hedge trimmers, which is why Eustace is unable to actually do anything with the television, because there is no reception, because their antenna is gone. So Courage runs back in the house and tries to tell Eustace what's going on, but Eustace doesn't understand what Courage is trying to say, and is just kind of getting frustrated about the fact that he can't actually get the TV to work. At which point Maria points out that they actually have excellent reception in their mobile home, and points out the mi casa is su casa, which she then points out is what she then says means what's mine is yours and what's yours is mine, and everything that implies, which Eustace responds works for him, and then he proceeds to pick up his TV and drags it into the mobile home, where he then proceeds to stay for the rest of the episode. And true to her word, she's not lying. He actually does get pretty excellent reception while he's in the mobile home, but once he's out of the picture, Maria then proceeds to she doesn't make it subtle at all that she's trying to steal Muriel's identity. And even asks where they keep all their personal documents, deed to the farm, birth certificate, and all the other different important documents that you would normally keep. and where they would actually be kept. And Courage immediately realizes that something is going on and tries to let Muriel know what's up. But Muriel responds that they can trust Maria and actually brings out their safe, which has all the documents in it. And then despite Courage's best efforts to actually feed Maria a phony combination by shouting random numbers, Muriel does eventually open the safe and shows Maria how to open the safe, and then shows her that all the documents are there and accounted for. But Courage doesn't really trust Maria, so he just takes all the documents from Muriel and shoves them back in the safe, which causes Muriel to become a little bit upset with him, pointing out that it's a bit rude. Although, to be fair, he is completely 100% right in this case, because you're not supposed to show your personal documents to anybody unless you absolutely have to. So, yeah, Muriel's being kind of dumb in this episode. I'll be perfectly honest. Not the best character trait for her to start off on with this episode. But, in any case, then Maria then asks Muriel to actually share her beauty secrets with her, so she does. And by the time she's done, she's not only curled Maria's hair to look exactly like hers, but also dyes it as well, to actually make it look like Muriel's signature gray hair. And by the time they come back down, they look absolutely identical. If Maria's even wearing a spare outfit of Muriel's. But in any case, now that she has everything they need, they then decide to actually go to bed and actually decide to sleep on it, saying that they'll see each other tomorrow. But while as Muriel is actually sleeping, Mono actually comes into her room, and then we find out why we haven't seen hide nor tail of him, because apparently that operation is to get Mono an entire new body because he's just a severed hand. So yeah, cartoon physics at its finest. Mono doesn't even have a brain attached, yet he's somehow cognitive enough to be able to manipulate your hand. Maybe it's like a phantom hand syndrome reference or something. But in any case, Mono then proceeds to walk into her bedroom and actually steals Muriel's glasses and leaves. And Courage sees him and tries to inform her what's going on, but she can't see a thing without her glasses, so his warnings kind of fall on deaf ears. But in case, with their glasses in hand, Mono and Maria then proceed to leave, which Courage then decides to celebrate, pointing out that now they're actually out of their hair. But then, as they're actually listening to the radio the next morning, and Muriel is actually stumbling over things because she can't actually see without her glasses, they then find out that a rare diamond from the Nowhere Museum has actually been stolen, and that Muriel Bag is apparently the prime suspect, which Courage freaks out because he knows Maria actually has since adopted Muriel's identity, and is trying to pretend to be her. And then the Nowhere Newsman then goes on to explain how they actually left all the incriminating documents at the museum so that the police would know who to finger, which is very bad because they all point to Muriel being the prime suspect, and then sure enough, a police officer then comes to actually arrest Muriel, who doesn't fully understand who he is or why he's there until he provides her with her glasses, pointing out that they found them at the scene of the crime, and then proceeds to try and read her the Miranda rights. But Courage immediately realizes that he needs to get Muriel out of there so he can actually clear her name, and then proceeds to steal the police officer's bike. And they proceed to run off with him following behind on foot. At which point they proceed to catch up to Maria and Mono, who now have the diamond in their possession and now are able to actually afford Mono's operation to get him a new body, which is important considering the fact that he doesn't really have much else and he's literally just a hand. And I'm a little curious as to understand how that would work, but in any case, she then proceeds to see Muriel out of the rearview mirror as well as Courage, and decide to give them a bit of neighborly hospitality, which is to say they activate the weapon system on their RV, which they apparently have, and proceed to start opening fire with various weapons on Courage as he tries to get close enough to actually board the thing. But eventually he does manage. But eventually one of the weapons actually does wind up hitting the bike and actually winds up leaving it with only the back wheel, the engine, and the handlebars, but still very much functioning. At which point, Courage decides to actually leap to the RV and actually tries to climb in, which results in another trap trying to melt him. But he does eventually wind up to get onto the roof and tries to actually get into the passenger side window so he can actually take the diamond and actually cure Muriel, and actually prove Muriel's innocence. But then they hit a sharp turn and Courage winds up going into the window and landing on top of Mono and eating the diamond in the process. With Maria actually praising Mono for having Courage in the palm of his hand, literally, and then tells him to finish Courage off, and so Courage starts getting strangled by Mono, which is literally the only thing he can do because he's a severed hand. At which point, Muriel points out something very interesting, that they can take her identity, they can take her personal documents, but when they take Courage, that's a step too far. So at which point she then charges at the RV with the damaged bike and actually winds up going over the roof and actually winds up going in through the front window and landing on top of Mono and in the process accidentally knocks Muriel out, which causes their RV to crash and explode. And also Eustace, who's been riding in the trailer this whole time, actually winds up having his head going through the TV. But in any case, now that everybody's kind of disoriented, Courage then proceeds to pick himself back up. And here's Muriel calling for him, who's wondering where he is. And he actually winds up finds her glasses and picks them up and goes to bring them to her. But then Eustace, who currently has a TV on his head, actually winds up accidentally tripping over Courage and accidentally breaks the TV. And Eustace scolds Courage for breaking the TV and tries to strangle him. But then Muriel shows up and beats him over the head and reveals and points out that she guesses the only thing she can see without her glasses is Eustace's big shiny head. At which point Courage returns her glasses to her, and she's perfect, and they have a bit of a hug. Meanwhile, Maria is trying to escape, but he can't because Mono is currently stuck in between a cactus. So at which point the police officer finally catches up to them and arrests them both. After trying and failing to read the Miranda rights to them, but because he's that out of breath that he can't actually do any of that. But in any case, with everybody, with their family now back together, Muriel is just happy that everything is back to normal. But Eustace is crying unconsolably because, as it turns out, he actually did, because as much as the Ladrones were actually a thorn in their side, he did miss the beautiful reception that he got from living in their trailer and wonders when they're coming back. At which point, Mono then proceeds to turn off the TV like a whole "Hey, I'm still here" kind of thing, like they usually do at the end of these episodes. But in any case, this episode is interesting in that, the main thing of this episode is that Muriel's a little bit dumb in this episode because she gives away her personal documents to some con artists, which is very dangerous. Don't do that. It doesn't really matter if they're your neighbor or not. Don't do that. But more to the point, this episode actually brings up something interesting about Muriel's character, which is that she is usually a very kind and compassionate person unless it involves Courage being in danger. That is a main thing that's actually brought up about her character. She's usually cowers in fear and tries to run away and preserve herself. But when it comes to Courage, the exact opposite is true. She will try to preserve him. She will try to save him at any cost, and that's kind of interesting. So she very much loves Courage as much as Courage loves her, and if the roles are reversed, she will very much try and save him instead, which is interesting. And that is an interesting thing this episode brings up. But in any case, that's my review of this episode. Onward to the next one. Okay, so this episode, Courage versus Mecha-Courage, is interesting in that it shows Courage almost losing his job as the family dog. So, and the episode may or may not be a reference to John Henry and also Godzilla versus Mecha-Godzilla, a couple of different things, but In any case, the episode starts off with Courage gnawing on one of Eustace's boots, which he needs later in the episode, but I'll get into that. At which point, D Lung shows up, D Lung shows up with a stick, and asks Courage to go fetch it, and then sticks it in a rocket launcher and sends it far further than it should ever actually be. Any dog would reasonably try to fetch. And Courage understands this. He just goes back to gnawing his boot, having no interest in D-Lung or his nonsense. So D-Lung actually picks up Courage and shoves Courage into the rocket launcher and tells him to go fetch, and then fires him off, at which Courage eventually does come back with the stick and lodged in his throat, though D-Lung actually doesn't see any of that. decides that Courage is actually useless as a dog and decides to make a better dog. Meanwhile, Eustace and Muriel are going about their business, and Eustace is currently trying to deal with a flooded basement. The basement apparently flooded, and he needs his and as I mentioned earlier, he needs his boot to actually go down and go get it. But obviously, Courage currently has it, so he doesn't have a boot to go down and investigate. And also he winds up stubbing his toe on a kitchen chair in the process, which causes him to kind of stumble around a little bit and causes him to actually go out the kitchen door. But in any case, it's at this point where D-Long actually presents his greatest creation, Mecha-Courage. And Mecha-Courage is, as by D-Long's own explanation, is like Courage but better. So, and at which point he sends Mecha-Courage into the Bag farmhouse to actually go and help them with their stuff. And also to compete against Courage. So Courage winds up. So Mecha-Courage actually goes into the house and obviously Eustace currently needs a boot and actually needs the basement drain. So what Mecha-Courage actually does is after giving Eustace a foot massage, it actually measures his foot to actually makes him a new shoe which since the old one got kind of destroyed because of D-Long trying to demonstrate that Mecha-Courage was better in every way. And at which point Mecha-Courage then proceeds to go down in the basement and actually deals with the flooding itself. It tightens the bolts on the piping so that the water stops coming out, and then vacuums up all the water and cleans it up. And Mecha-Courage and Eustace even starts to admit that he may like Mecha-Courage a little bit, even though he doesn't really seem to notice that Mecha-Courage is a different type of Courage, but and it isn't even the same dog, but he does kind of points out that he isn't as stupid a dog as he thought, but he's still a stupid dog. At which point Courage and Mecha-Courage are both, because after this, D-Long actually keeps score and winds up getting hit by a bus, which isn't really important to the episode. It's just an excuse for him to say his catchphrase, but he winds up getting hit by a bus while he's trying to keep score. But in any case, it's also at this point where Muriel asks Courage to help her set the table for dinner. And Courage takes up the dishes, but then Mecha-Courage takes them from him and not only sets up the plates, but also sets up silverware, a candelabra, the whole works, and even gives Eustace a bib so that he actually doesn't dribble on himself, by tying a napkin around Eustace's neck. And Eustace praises Mecha-Courage for it, but also is reluctant to admit that he actually likes Mecha-Courage, so he continues to call him a stupid dog. And later that day, they're actually watching TV, and Eustace actually spies a news advert for a new fishing rod that actually is very good and very effective at actually catching fish. And Eustace actually starts fantasizing about all the fish he can catch with that fishing rod, even though he's never really been shown to fish. Interestingly enough. I'm a little interested if it makes it seem like he has some hobbies that aren't actually expressly explained. But in any case, there's suddenly a knock on the door, and Muriel asks Courage to go investigate, and Courage opens the door only to discover to his horror that it's actually Mecha-Courage on the other end. And Mecha-Courage, after running through the door and actually slamming the door in Courage's face, which causes Courage to become badly injured, it then proceeds to present the new fishing rod to Eustace, with Eustace finally admitting that he actually does like Mecha-Courage quite a bit, and then proceeds to take Courage's place on Muriel's lap. Which winds up being the final straw for Courage, and he winds up walking out of the house and closing the door behind him, feeling a little bit dejected. At which point, D-Long shows up and starts mocking Courage, pointing out that he's no good and that he'll never actually beat Mecha-Courage, even if he was a gladiator in Roman combat. So, which winds up pissing Courage off. So Courage decides to take D-Long up on that offer, and they go to Rome. Where they then proceed to compete in a series of challenges to try and defeat one another and try to battle one another in combat. And initially, Courage dresses up in full battle armor and tries to hammer Mecha-Courage with it, but he tries to hammer Mecha-Courage with a mallet, but with what's it called, a mace. But it quickly becomes apparent that again, as D-Long said, everything Courage does, Mecha-Courage does better. Case in point, every time Courage brings out a weapon, Mecha-Courage just brings out a better version of that weapon. The first starts with the mace, with Mecha-Courage just bringing out a much bigger mace and beating Courage with it senseless. Which then changes to them actually trying to fire arrows at one another, and with Mecha-Courage again taking it overboard and firing a whole volley of arrows, which nearly pins Courage to the wall and nearly turns him into Swiss cheese. At which point Courage tries to ram Mecha-Courage with a chariot, but it just bounces off, and then Mecha-Courage runs him over with a giant tire. At which point Courage pulls out a squirt gun and tries to short-circuit Mecha-Courage, which Mecha-Courage not only just wipes off, but then turns into a fire hydrant and sprays him away and sends Courage flying in the sands next to where D-Lung is. And D-Lung continues to mock Courage, pointing out that he can never beat Mecha-Courage, but then remarks that Courage should just give up, which Courage is adamantly refusing to do. And now, having taken a significant beating, he then tries and shove Mecha-Courage. But Mecha-Courage then responds by picking up Courage and throwing him repeatedly, which is very dangerous, and Courage is almost about to be killed until it's revealed that in the process of trying to outdo Mecha-Courage, Courage actually succeeded in defeating Mecha-Courage in the long term because he wound up draining Mecha-Courage's battery, which caused it to explode. And D-Lung actually becomes frustrated, pointing out that Courage should have given up when he had the chance, and now he's actually wound up draining Mecha-Courage's battery. At which point, the Roman Emperor, who is revealed to have been watching the whole thing the whole time, and is revealed to have been there, then proceeds to declare Courage the winner, and D-Lung is dropped down a hole. So, at which point everything returns back to normal, and Eustace sees an advert for a mechanical dog, which Eustace remarks that they actually need one of. But Muriel merely scolds him, pointing out that nothing can replace her Courage. With Courage just remarking, "That's right, you fool," to make fun of D-Lung. So, and also ironically, she says that after Mecha-Courage handily replaced her Courage the entire episode, and she didn't realize it. But that's beside the point. But in case, this episode is kind of interesting in that it's a parallel to a couple different things. It's a reference to, it's maybe or may not be a reference to John Henry, in that that John Henry was a American folk hero who was a rail driver who made railways, and he fought against the machine. His story ends with him dying, by the way, but he does wind up beating the machine in the end. And also Godzilla versus Mecha-Godzilla, where an organic and a robotic counterparts wind up competing against one another, and eventually the organic one defeats the robotic one. But yeah, this episode is interesting, and that's a couple different parallels to that, and I do kind of like the episode for that. It is kind of interesting in that regard. But in any case, that's my review of Courage the Cowardly Dog. What did you guys think? Let's get discussing in the comment section down below, or over on my Discord server, link in the description. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, be sure to follow me on Twitter in the description below. Be sure to check out my Patreon if you want to help support the show. It's only a couple bucks a month. It does really help me out, and you guys get access to a bunch of cool perks that I'm always saying thanks. And also, just check it out in general, because I am trying to actually, if I want to make more projects like this, then obviously I'm going to need your guys' support. So if you guys want to see more massive projects like this, be sure to go check that out down in the description. Also, if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check out the videos linked in the end screen. The top video is the most recent one. It may or may not be this one. Whereas the bottom video is the video recommended to you based on what you've already seen from me, and either of those may or may not be Courage related, because we're in the middle of the Courage month. So, in any case, be sure to check both of those out if you want to see more from me. And finally, the other way you can actually support me content-wise is by actually checking out my Twitch down in the description. I stream every Tuesday, 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, so if you want to see more content from me, then be sure to check that out, and also just check me out down there in general, because I'm trying to complete a milestone, and I need your guys' help with that. But in any case, thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, I will see you guys in the next video. Peace!